Welcome, Dr. Campbell. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with you today. Grateful to Lael and your family, your daughter Coco and others for their support and for the great conversation we had. I will confess I have not read your 10 books, but I look forward to reading several of them. You have laid out in great detail the remarkable record you have at helping stand up innovative and resolute partnerships between the United States and key allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific. And I think you are the right man at the right moment for this challenge for us. I'll also point out that December 7th, the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, is also the anniversary of the moment that Senator Vandenberg, a Republican from Michigan, who was chairman of this committee, dramatically changed his position from an America First isolationism, urging that we reach an accommodation with Japan, to recognizing that our only path forward was a bipartisan one, locking arms across the aisle here and looking to the world with a common determination to advance freedom. Kurt, I'm very worried that right now the Senate stands on the precipice of failing to provide critically needed support and supplies, funding and material for the Ukrainians who are fighting Russian aggression, for our partners in the Indo-Pacific, for Israel in its fight against Hamas, and for the humanitarian needs of dozens of countries. Just briefly, could you say what would the consequences be for our global leadership if we were to fail to provide the support critically needed by our allies at this moment?
Well, Senator, thank you for that, and thank you for your nice comments. Look, the truth is the struggle, the desperate struggle in Ukraine is no longer just a regional conflict. Many outside players are hugely invested. What's different about this conflict, not only have we seen substantial resources from Europe, even greater than from the United States, but huge support for the Indo-Pacific because they understand the stakes about how this region, how Europe is increasingly linked to the Indo-Pacific more generally. So myself personally, I worry that the wrong lessons will be taken. If you look at the doctrine that was published by China and Russia before the Beijing Winter Olympics and really look at it closely, it's a document out of the 1930s where big countries should dominate smaller countries on their periphery. That is antithetical to everything we believe and support. I will say one of the things that I have appreciated and enjoyed the most is that, yes, this is a highly contested time. There's lots of signs of dysfunction, but I have found the discussions with this community, both together and with individual senators, I think there's much more that unite you all than divide you, and it has given me personally much more confidence about the road ahead. And so I know that this period is incredibly intense and difficult. I'm not involved in those deliberations. I have confidence that we're going to find a way to basically secure support for Ukraine appropriately, working with allies and partners, make sure that we take the necessary steps, standing with Israel, but also planning for the future in Gaza and elsewhere. I'm confident. The president said yesterday he's prepared to make substantial compromises with respect to the border, and we have critical needs in the Indo-Pacific to stand with Taiwan, to support the Philippines. So I think the comprehensive nature of this budget request will affirm America's strategic purpose in ways that are deeply consequential and will go right at the heart at the criticisms and the hopes of those who wish us ill.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Two quick follow-on questions, if I might. And I agree with you that addressing border security is a critical part of our path forward. A key piece of the supplemental is also funding for the Compacts of Free Association states, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Palau. I think it's critical that we pass robust funding to strengthen these valuable partnerships with Pacific Islands. What would the impact be on our position in the Indo-Pacific if that were knocked out of this package or if we were to fail to pass the COFA funding?
So first of all, I want to thank you. I also want to, again, thank Senator Risch and his staff. I've gone through all the correspondence, all the suggestions about how we step up our game in the Pacific, something that is actually very near and dear to my heart. I am proud of the efforts I've taken over the last 2 years in making sure that we do better in the Pacific, a place that we have enormous strategic historic moral responsibilities. The COFA agreement, as you know, provides support for the 3 nations in the Northern Pacific, critical to our security. I will simply say to the Senate that literally China is waiting. At the moment that we are unable to fulfill our commitment to fulfill the COFA arrangements with these countries, arrangements that we've enjoyed for decades, that keeps these countries in our purview, that work closely with us. You could not ask for a better ally and partner than Palau. President Whips, a son of Baltimore, wants to be with the United States. He needs this agreement. And if we don't get it, you can expect that literally the next day, Chinese diplomats, military, and other folks will be on the plane, landing in each of these things, try to secure a better deal for China. We need to do this.
Well, thank you for your focus on the region. I look forward to traveling either with you or informed by you.
Great.
Last topic, bipartisan legislation Senator Graham and I worked on for years, created the Global Fragility Act. I'm encouraged by your service at a senior level in the Pentagon, as well as your service in the Navy, as you move towards a senior position in the State Department, because the whole goal of the Global Fragility Act was to demonstrate that the strategy that we followed across several administrations in Colombia of pulling together jointly across state, AID, DOD, in partnership with a country for a long period of time was the best way to deal with a fragile state. As you know, I've been very frustrated by the initial period of GFA implementation, both the selection of some countries that struck me as well outside the scope of it, and the difficulty getting buy-in, in particular from senior DOD officials. Will you commit to working with me on Global Fragility Act implementation, including improving interagency coordination, targeting sustained funding towards these countries, and making sure that we prove out the thesis underlying it that was the result of a 2-year-long study and development process by senior experienced diplomats, that we have to figure out a way to get a 3D strategy right long-term?
First of all, Senator, I want to thank you for your leadership and creativity in putting this piece of legislation together. It is bipartisan, signed into law by President Trump. I actually was very grateful. I argued that one of the countries that I worked on in the Indo-Pacific, Papua New Guinea, be included in that for a variety of reasons, has vast oil and natural gas reserves, but continues to be one of the poorest countries in the world. Why is that? And so how to think about that going forward. I think what's most inventive and important about this legislation is that it encourages, it requires a degree of coordination between 3 critical agencies, AID, the State Department, and the Department of Defense. If I'm confirmed, I think this is a deeply innovative piece of legislation that should be further implemented. And frankly, we're dealing in Africa, Latin America, and the Pacific with an increasing number of fragile states that need greater support. We've got to be careful how we do it. We just can't pile resources on, but a constructive, multifaceted strategy like that you've laid out, that's the right approach. I'm committed to it.
Thank you. I look forward to working together on coastal West Africa, on U.S. engagement with the Global South, on PNG, and on other countries. And I look forward to supporting your confirmation. Senator Henry.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Coons.